The old house wore summer the way a grandmother wears a shawl. Soft, familiar, and a little too warm. It smelled of lilac and rain, of old wood and baked bread, the way a memory often smells when you lean in close enough to hear its heartbeat. I was a boy once, with knees that knew how to run, and a mouth full of shortcuts between joy and fear. Ada, my sister, we had a ritual, small and precise, born of a child's need to keep mischief away, and to hold a fading thing close. We drew a circle with chalk on the kitchen floor, a circle as neat as a promise, and we placed 4 coins at the cardinal points, nickels, because they tasted like rain when you rubbed them between thumb and forefinger. Then we spoke the names of the rooms in the old house, as if the rooms might answer us if we listened long enough. Kitchen for warmth, hall for memory, stair for dreaming, door for safe returns. Ada whispered the name of the attic as if it belonged to a someone who might listen, if someone listened hard enough. Ada believed the house remembered. She told me the walls kept secrets in their grain, that when the rain came in sideways through the window, the house pressed its ear to the sill and listened for the sound of faraway laughter. We did not know the word haunting then, only the ache of wanting to believe that we mattered to something larger than a child's clock or a cat's yawning afternoon. So we spoke our bare truths into the circle and watched until the coins settled, and the floorboards settled with them, faintly, as if the house itself agreed to stay quiet for just a while longer. Ada vanished one spring, simply as a rumour vanishes when you tell it aloud too many times. It was not a dramatic disappearance, not in the movies. It was the kind of vanish that leaves a little silence behind, a small hollow in the air where a laugh used to live. The weeks passed with the stubbornness of rain, and then the house began to remember differently. Doors would open on their own in the late afternoon. A draft of someone's breath threaded through the hall when no one stood there, and the floorboards, which had always kept time with my feet, started to tick in a slower rhythm, as if we had aged to match them. Years later, when the insurance papers arrived and the city's roads grew too loud for a man who had grown old in a single street, I returned to the house to settle what was left of us. I moved through the rooms with careful, practiced hands, as if each switch and latch were a sentence I needed to rewrite. The lilac outside was still there, though weather and time had learned to pare away the loudness of the bloom. The kitchen circle lay on the floor, a pale ghost of chalk and coin, nearly erased by time, yet not quite erased, the proof that Ada and I had once believed firmly in a miracle we could touch with our feet. The smell of lilac turned into a memory I could almost taste, and then a fear woke in me that did not feel like fear so much as a patient, unanswerable question. I would hear a sound that did not belong to the world I lived in, a coin tapping against another coin in a rhythm too. It spoke in details, how the light moved along the kitchen's edge, as if it remembered which window brought it in, how the clock ticked a heartbeat I could not quite place, how the attic door, once stubborn and stubbornly closed, rolled upward by itself at precisely dusk, as if the house were bowing to some forgotten guest. And the guest was not a person, at least not in the body sense. It was a memory, a life pressed into the walls until the walls learned to breathe with it. I found a photograph I did not remember placing there. Ada's face aged in the glass. The edges softened as if water had once run across it and then dried away, leaving behind something dreamlike and true. Beside it lay a note I should have written years ago, but never did. a scribble in my own handwriting that I did not recognize until I read the words aloud. Ada's name, repeated, folded into the margins like a prayer you repeat when you forget the words. The more I spoke her name, the more the room took on the hush that precedes rain. It was as if the house waited for the syllables to fall in the right order to unlock something. An opening not to the outside world, but to the memory we had built as children and thought we had left behind. Then came the night of the long sighs, the kind of night that makes the ceiling seem too near, as though the house itself pressed down with a weight of years, a patient, careful burden. I lay in bed listening to the house breathe, a soft exhale that rose through the walls, through the bed frame, through me. A whisper came, not loud, not demanding, but intimate. A name I knew too well, spoken from the corner where the ceiling met the wall, where Ada used to sit with her knees tucked under her chin and tell me stories that ended with us floating to the stars on the breath of a shared fear. The circle, the voice said, the circle never truly closed. I did not rise. I did not move. I listened. The whisper did not feel cruel. It felt old, tired with longing and a sweetness that hurt to hear. The house was patient with me, as if it meant to give me time to confess what I had never dared to confess aloud to anyone, even to myself. The memory grew in the corners of the rooms, a procession of children I had once believed were only mine to command. And Ada's laugh, soft, sudden, bright, pushed through the plaster, as if it had always been there, waiting for permission to speak again. And then with the slow inevitability of a door being opened by a faith it had never learned how to break, the truth arrived in a form I recognized, without surprise, yet with a chill that travelled from the crown of my head to the tips of my toes. It was Ada who stood in the doorway of the kitchen, smaller than memory, yet luminous with the exact light of the summer we spent there, as if no time had passed at all. She did not smile. She possessed the quiet certainty of someone who has waited through countless dawns for a single night to end, and has chosen to be the night she was promised. Her lips did not move in the way a living person's do. Instead, the room absorbed her words before they could reach my ears. I heard my own name spoken, not as a question, but as an answer, a single syllable that carried with it all the conversations we had never had, the apologies we never spoke, the promises we had not kept. Ada did not speak of the past as something to be revived. She spoke of the past as something to be paid for, something owed to a debt I had never